Welcome back to Rob Sandstrom Designs. In this video, we're going to talk about using your CNC to design and cut a cutting board, including the juice groove. I have lots of friends out there that have CNCs, and I see them using fixtures and jigs and everything to cut the juice groove just right. And it works for them, but sometimes it gets a little more complicated. So first they cut out the cutting board on their table saw, typically, and then they use a router or something to carve into it, or they might use a laser, and then they use a special jig with a cove bit for their juice groove. This video is going to demonstrate how people, if they have a cutting board, things glued up, or in this case it's going to be a flat beech piece of wood, how they can take that, design it in their software on Vectric VCarve Pro, and first cut the juice groove and then cut the cutting board. So that's the first of two videos that I'm going to make. The second video I'm going to make is now how to take that cutting board that's been completed on your CNC and take it over to the laser and engrave it the way you want it to. And that'll be a second video. So it's going to be a two-part series. My goal is to help some people who have been a little afraid of using their CNC to make a cutting board and do it all in one step. Hopefully this will help them. If you like this video, please give it a thumb up. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I continue to make videos to help woodworkers and makers use various tools. CNC, laser are my primary focus, but I do throw in other ones every once in a while. Have a series on multicolor epoxies. If you like this video, like I said, give it a thumbs up. Give me comments on things you'd like to see, and subscribe right now before you forget if you think you'd like to have the kind of instructional videos I like to produce. With that, let's go into the software side first. So what we'll do is we'll cover the software side, then we'll get into the actual cutting of the cutting board. Sometimes people have given me feedback that I talk a little slow, or I'm a little slow going through the software, because I like to throw a lot of little tips and tricks in, things that I've learned from. If you find that I'm talking too slow or the video is not moving fast enough, I try to put chapters in the videos. Please feel free to jump to those chapters or even speed up the video if you think you're learning fast enough and the speed of my voice doesn't go too fast for you. Okay, to start this design of cutting board, let's make it quick and easy. We're going to go with create a new file. And my cutting board width is right now, the board is 9 5/16 wide. I always let Vectric do the math for me so I don't accidentally make a mistake in my head, in 14 7/16. So what I'm doing is putting plus and then I'm hitting the equal sign. And it's 1.045 inches thick. And I'm going to be measuring off the machine bed because I'm going to be cutting through. And we'll go with the center now, and then I'll change to the corner in a minute. Hit OK. So this cutting board is going to be a real simple process, and all I'm going to do actually on this program for the most part is going to design the actual cutting board itself, and then I'm going to go over to my laser and I will actually engrave it on my laser. So the board, I want to make it 8.5 inches wide by 13.5 inches. Let's try that. Create. It's centered. I want to make sure that I have enough for my bit to clear without cutting into my wooden fence I'm going to be fastening it to. So let me go over here. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch bit. So let me make sure that my measurements are right. I'm going to go there to there. That gives me 0.5 inches. That gives me plenty of room to cut that board without cutting into my fence and clamps. So, and up here, let's take a real quick look. That gives me 0.46, so 0.5 inches all the way around, which is what I had in my mind. Now the next thing I want to do is to actually put a radius on these corners. So we're going to go down here to the fillet tool, and I'm going to make that a 0.5 inch radius, and we'll go to each corner. Now we have that. Now I want a juice groove. The juice groove I like to make usually about 3/4 of an inch in, so I'm going to come over here to the offset tool and use the 0.75, which is what I normally use. Offset, close, go back to the fillet tool, and we'll put that juice groove in there. Hit close. Okay, that works for us, and my juice grooves don't need to be real big, especially on these small boards. So I've got everything I need. Now I just need to set up cutting the toolpaths. So we go over here to the toolpath. Let me change this XY datum point now to be in the corner. I still want it off the material bed here, machine bed, but I want it to be off the corner when it calculates the toolpaths. Okay. I have the juice groove that I want to use, so that's the first toolpath. All I'm going to do is use a profile toolpath. I'm going to go down 0.125 inches, which is plenty deep, that 1/8 of an inch for a juice groove. I'm going to select bull bit. Hit select, and I'm going to put it on the line, and I'm only going down 0.125 inches, but I'll still add a ramp. Let's call it a 1/2 inch ramp. I don't need a separate last pass. I don't need a bunch of layers this time, so I'm just going to select that as a juice groove, and we're going to call that bull bit so I know what it is. Hit calculate. Now the next one I want to do is actually to do a roundover on the outside edge, and then also a through cut. So we're going to work on the roundover next. So I'm going to pick this right here, which is the outside profile cut. Hit close. The roundover tool I'm going to use is one that's worked smooth for me in the past. It's a tool number 25.2, I think, in a Mana tool. I'll look it up and put it in the description. And I did a video on doing roundovers in the past, and I'll try to put a link to that in the definition or the description of the video, and maybe I'll put a card up here if I can figure out how to do that. Let's take a look at it. So to do the roundover, I'm going to select this outer profile. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select a profile toolpath. I'm going to make the cut of depth 0.375 for this particular bit. That's the top of the bit. I'm going to select the bit, which is in my form tools. It's this form tool 2052 plunge roundover. 0.375 is the pass depth. I'm going to change that. I don't like to go full depth right away, so I'm going to change that slightly when I actually set up the toolpath. Select, and I'm going to edit passes, and I'm going to put in there number of passes, 2, and that'll give me each one will be 0.1875 each. Hit OK. I'm going to go outside right, and I'm going to go minus 0.25 or 0.25, I guess. Doesn't really matter, but it helps. I'm not going to do a separate last pass. I'm not going to add tabs. I will go ahead and ramp this over 0.5 inches. I'll call this the roundover. And let's take a preview of what those two paths look like. Okay, so now we have the roundover. We have the juice groove. I'm going to go ahead and take and put in, do the cutout. So I need to select a profile path. I'm going to go down the length of the material, which is Z. I'm going to select a compression bit that I have. I hit select. Outside right. Do separate last pass. And I'm going to glue this thing down. And so I don't need to add tabs. I want to add a ramp, 0.5 inches, and we'll call this cutout. Let's preview that one. Now I could have put tabs, but there's not going to be much on here to hold, so I want to be safe with gluing it down. And that's what it should look like when it's all said and done. The last shot of the video was showing this, and I had said I was going to go now load the toolpaths into the actual USB to take to the CNC. When I got to the CNC and started to connect the board and then check out the bits, I realized that I had forgotten to do something that I wanted to do, and that is whenever I'm going to use a roundover bit, I need to measure off the surface of the board versus off the bed. So when I'm going to cut through a project, I use the bed, and here's what I'm talking about real quick. So as you can see, if I go to material setup, when I left, I had the machine, the Z set off the bed, and that's so that when I cut through, I have less of a chance of marking up my spoiler bore. But when I do a roundover, the depth of that roundover cut is critical to not leaving a ridge right here along the side. If I go too deep, then I leave a ridge that I got to deal with and sand off. If I don't go deep enough, then I don't have a good roundover. So you want to measure from the surface whenever using a roundover bit. I've mentioned that in my roundover video where I discuss how to use roundover bits. So when I got to the board, I realized I hadn't done that. So now what I need to do is just do a real quick change for one toolpath. So I've already saved the bowl bit and the cutout bit to the USB. So those are set up to zero off the bed. And now I want to change just the roundover bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to material setup, and I'm going to take, and instead of say machine bed, I'm going to say material surface, hit OK. Then I'll get this message. Changing any of these settings means that all toolpaths must be recalculated to ensure correct results. I hit yes. So now everything is recalculated from the surface. And let me show you how it looks. It'll look the same. So now everything is recalculated from touching down on the surface, including my roundover. So now what I'll do is I'll click on the roundover bit and I'll save that one to my USB drive, and I'll keep the other two that were calculated from the machine bed. And that will allow me to get a nice clean roundover. Decided we were going to use two-sided tape. We could use two-sided tape. This happens to be X-Fasten, or we could have used blue tape and CA glue if we wanted. But this is what I chose to use. Okay, that's glued down. That's not going anywhere. But just to make sure, while all the cutting's going on, I like to hold it down with the side clamps also. So we got the board held down, and I'm going to go ahead and make two cuts on this. One with the juice groove, one with the roundover, and one where we cut through. So that's 3 cuts. I'm using 3 bits. I've got a bowl bit, which I've already installed inside the bit. Then I have a roundover bit, which is this bit here, and I'll link to a previous video where I talked about using this bit. And then I have a compression bit to do the final cut through. So those are the 3 bits I'll be using, and we'll go ahead and get started. Now, the bowl bit and the compression bit, I went ahead and I zero off the bed. Mostly for this compression bit, I don't want it cutting into my bed if I'm off in my calculations. On the roundover bit, which is more sensitive to how deep it's going so it has a nice smooth edge, I'm actually going to zero my bit off material. So you'll see me zeroing off 2 different places, and that's why. So the bowl bit, I'll go ahead and zero off the bed. Roundover, once again, I'll zero off the material surface, and then I'll go back to zeroing off the bed. Okay, I reinstalled my dust collector hose. Now I'm going to zero this out. And on this roundover, instead of zeroing off the deck, I'm going to actually zero off the material because it's very sensitive to height and not leaving a ridge. So I'm zeroing off the material itself. I've zeroed off the material surface. I put the dust collector back on. And now I'm getting ready to cut the roundover. Okay, it's time to zero this bit. Once again, we're zeroing on the bed. Thought I'd take a minute and point out one thing about feeds and speeds. And it looks like the feeds and speeds on this were pretty good because this is what you're looking for. Can you see? Instead of sawdust, these are actually, I'm not sure how well the camera will focus, but these are actually shavings. See the little shavings there? So instead of just a bunch of grounded sawdust, we've got a bunch of little shavings that are coming off this bit, which is what you're looking for the right feeds and speeds to make sure your bit's actually cutting and not just disintegrating. So I thought I'd point that out, that was a good feed and speed for at least that compression bit. Roundover is nice, joins down into the wood, nice clean on the top, a little bit of sanding, this is going to be just fine. Now I can take this small cutting board over to my laser and get started in there. That's the end of part 1 of the video. We've actually completed designing it in Vectric software, and then we put it on the CNC and we cut it. And the next part of the video that we'll talk about in this playlist, which will be part 2, which I'll produce in the next day or two, it's already been completed, the actual project. Now I just have to edit the video, is taking the completed cutting board we just cut on the CNC and then engraving it on the laser, and how I go about doing that process. Let's do a little review of some key things that we went through in this video. But before we do, don't forget to hit that like button, smash the subscribe if you're interested in learning more tips and tricks on CNC and laser work, which is the ones I focus on the most, but I do other tips and tricks. So help me out and smash that like, give me a comment or ask questions if you want. So let's cover some tips and tricks. One of the things you might recall earlier in the video was I had forgotten that when I use a roundover bit, I have to zero the bit off the surface. So I had to go back just as I was getting ready to start the project and zero the roundover bit, change the profile path in Vectric software so that I was going to actually zero off the surface of the cutting board. As opposed to when I'm cutting through projects, I like to measure off the material bed to avoid damage to this bed. Your chance of error, if you're not that good with the calipers and so forth, is much less if you're zeroing off the bed, because when you zero off the bed and you put down, that's zero. It's not going to go any further. So I actually used two different methods of zeroing the bit, which meant I had to create two different setups in the software when I was getting the toolpath transferred to my USB drive to cut with. The first one was my roundover bit, and I've got a whole video on doing roundover bits. If you want to learn more about how to use roundover bits, use that. I used a 1/4 inch roundover bit. And then measuring off the material bed versus the surface of the material for my compression bit and my bowl bit. The juice groove, I used a bowl bit. It's a 7/16 inch bowl bit. You could use a ball nose bit. There's other ways of doing that. I like to use my bowl bit. It's convenient and handy, and it's just the right size. So now that we've completed cutting the board, the next part of the video, which will be coming out soon, is taking that cut board into the laser and engraving on it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you picked up a couple tips and tricks. And until we meet again, wishing you a wonderful life. Thank you.